Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Civilizations in Review. I'm so excited to welcome Umaima Fatih tonight, our wonderful content writer, to talk all about Acadia 101. I want to start with all of the wonderful places you'll find this wonderful recording. We're obviously on Facebook Live, so thank you for joining us here. We'll soon be on our podcast, on Instagram TV, and our website, and we'll talk about it also on our TikTok, soon to come, but also our Twitter and LinkedIn. And YouTube. And YouTube. My goodness, I missed one. I always do. So a lot of really exciting places to see this wonderful conversation. Umaima is a wonderful trio as a content writer, as a really engaged member of our global community, and as an official partner as of today, which we will talk about shortly. So thank you for that. But we're just going to jump right into Acadia 101. I want to learn all about this oldest first empire in the world. So let's jump into it. Megan will read the intro.
All right, here we go. Thank you everyone for being here. Akkad was the capital of the Akkadian Empire, which ruled over a large expanse of ancient Mesopotamia from 2300 BCE to 2100 BCE. So that's 200 years. Today, the exact location of Akkad is unknown, but there are a number of sources that suggest its establishment to be near modern-day Baghdad. Despite a relatively short existence of about 200 years in the region, the Akkadian Empire recorded many major firsts in history. The king Sargon of Akkad united all the Akkadian-speaking Semites and the Sumerian speakers under one sole rule within a multilingual territory, which would become known as the world's first empire. Okay.
Love it. Let's jump into it. World's first empire. What a fun one to write about. What drew you to Acadia?
And first of all, thank you for inviting me. Actually, I really enjoyed the process of writing about Acadia, and I learned a lot about it because I'm someone who really enjoy reading about ancient history. And when I got to write about it, I found myself doing even profound reading. So I can see what are like the facts that need to be highlighted about in this case, the Akkadian civilization. And Akkadia was the world first empire that was founded by the king Sargon of Akkad. And for about 200 years, it existed. Basically, we all, I think, we know about the Sumerian civilization, but the Akkadia and the Akkadian civilization is not that known because of its relatively short period of existence. It's only about 200 years. If we compare it to the Sumerian civilization, it's not that important in time. However, the Akkadia really recorded some major achievements in history. And a lot of things that we know today, it's thanks to this civilization.
That's so neat. And I don't think that we give enough credit to the civilizations that have only lasted for a couple hundred years. I know the Tulanids only lasted 50.
Yeah.
And so like the first time that we heard about the Tulanids and their absolute roller coaster soap opera drama of an existence, it was so amazing. And you can do so much. You can have so much modern influence, stuff that like Ben and I didn't even expect for somebody who you studied a lot of civilizations in your graduate program. And so I think that, 200 years is pretty substantial. I'm not gonna lie.
Especially to be 4,000 years ago from today and to be the first empire and the Sumerians then take over and is a much longer empire. You have to start somewhere. I want to talk about in your inception decline, you call it the Curse of Akkad. What is that? That sounds really interesting.
Or who is that?
Yeah.
And actually, I really enjoyed this part the most, writing about the collapse of the Akkadian civilization, because it has two different perspectives. There is the mythology explanation behind the collapse. And basically the mythology, it has to do with the Sumerian beliefs that because of the curse of Akkad, Akkadian collapsed. So basically, Sumerians used to believe that the gods were really angry against the king Naram-San, who is basically the grandson of the founder of Akkadia, because he challenged the gods and he proclaimed himself to be a god himself and destroyed temples in Sumer. So basically the gods were angry. So they sent the Gutians who lived in the Sagres Mountains to invade Akkad and destroy it completely. So yeah, that was the mythology part. But what is actually for me more even interesting is the scientific evidence that the essential cause behind the collapse of Akkadian is actually climate change. And it's really interesting because it's still today like a big issue, and to know that the Gutians actually destroyed the city of Akkad, that is still today unknown, like its locations precisely, but the region went through like a drought for 100 years. So climate change was really obvious. That was the reason behind the collapse and of this amazing civilization.
Man, thank you for explaining that. A two-in-one curse. That's intense. Yeah, the Gutians and the Sumerians are two other civilizations, so check those out on our Civilizations 101
Do we have
list.
them both up?
Sumerians are. Gutians are forthcoming. So if any of you want to write
yeah.
about that, let us know. But climate change being such an impact is fascinating, especially because that was 4,000 years ago from the time of this recording. But wow, was there like what is that scientific evidence showing the drought and the impact of the climate change at that time?
There are a lot of articles in that on that like perspective that there was shown, because actually Akkadian relied on agriculture as the main source back then. So they had irrigation of system. And also what's really interesting is that basically Akkadians embraced the Sumerian culture and practices, so they used the same irrigation system. But during 100 years when there was no rain, and also they couldn't manage the sources, natural sources, especially water, so they get it from the rivers, Euphrates and Tigris back then. So there are so many articles. It's really interesting to go through the scientific explanation behind the collapse of Akkadian.
Yeah. So I'm looking through your article and I'm reading the key accomplishments section, which I always enjoy reading. Ben always goes for like economics ruling system, and I always go for modern influence key accomplishments. And I'm looking at the fact that the Akkadians invented the first postal service, which is very exciting. A friend of mine, this is completely off topic, but a friend of mine just recently got a job at USPS, which I very kindly pronounce USPS, Office of Inspector General. So congratulations, Josh Bradley. But let's hear a little bit more about the very first postal service.
Yes, actually, thanks to Akkadians, we have the postal service today, until today. And writing about the achievement, actually, it was a bit difficult because, as I said, Akkadians, they embraced the Sumerian culture. So all the practices, be it religious like practices, administration, services, etc., they kept the same. So I was like, what are the inventions and the achievements that were solely made by the Akkadians? And actually, they were the first to invent the postal service, and by actually putting clay tablets in clay envelopes and putting also the information of the receiver. So they were the first one to actually invent the service.
So they made clay envelopes to put clay tablets in. That is so fascinating.
Yes, I'm glad it didn't rain for 100 years,
yeah,
though.
Clearly.
Like, I would imagine that would get soupy.
Wow.
Did you see anything in your research that said like Sumeria took that idea and kind of ran with it?
Because of the revival of the Sumerians afterwards, they kept the same. So there was like they maintained the same services and what the invention of the Akkadians afterwards. Yeah. But the credits is of course to Akkadians.
Yeah, I feel like you can't take like an invention like that and then just kind of walk away from it. Obviously, because it's still around today and everybody has a postal service, but Yeah, I didn't know that it came from clay envelopes and clay tablets. That's so cool.
Got to start somewhere. Fascinating. So speaking of the way this empire is organized and whatnot, let's talk about King Sargon, the creator of this empire. Was it a pretty monarchical type of rule, or how was their structure as an empire?
So before the Akkadian empire, the ancient Sumer basically was formed by its city states. So each city state has a king. And when the king Sargon of Akkad took over ancient Sumer, he invented a new system of governance completely, which is basically a hereditary kingship. He managed to keep power by installing his sons basically and as governance after him. So this is how was the system.
Cool.
So
yeah, fascinating. I'm also reading here in the ruling system that all the daughters were the high priestesses of all of the major gods.
Yeah,
that is a really cool.
Really interesting.
I love that a lot.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And there is also what I learned and I find very inspiring is the story of his daughter. The daughter of King Sargon in Hedwana, she's basically the first writer and poet in history. And she wrote basically around 42 hymns, and 2 of them were dedicated to the goddess of love, Ishtar. And today there are in museums clay tablets that show her work. And then I find this very inspiring for women, and just to know that she was basically the first writer and poet ever.
The first writer and poet also had the first postal service at her disposal. I mean, that's perfect. Get your word out. That's really cool.
And also happened to be a priestess over one of the major gods.
I mean, wow. So I'm assuming it was a quite multi-god society and religion, right?
Yes, actually, it was religion was really important to maintain order within the empire, and by giving such power to the daughter, they also could really, they had important role within the management, if we can say, and the governance of the entire empire.
Well, I think that solidifies it. Women are definitely better than men. I don't know if everyone on Facebook would agree with this, right? But I think after knowing all of this, women are definitely 100% better than men.
I mean, the first poet and writer in all of history is the high priestess daughter of the first king of a first empire. Yeah, I'll stick with that.
I would take high priestess over a major god instead of a governor of some city any day.
Wow, that is really fascinating. I mean, I think what I like about that system too, clearly he had a lot of sons to organize all of these city-states, but it was kind of a familial empire in a sense, instead of, just conquest or battle or whatnot. It was, all of my sons and families and nephews, are controlling different cities and regions.
Well, and we've seen civilizations that have completely crumbled because they just didn't know how to pass off power onto the next generation. And I think King Sargon definitely knew how to do that, if anything else, right? He had the plan, he knew who he wanted to fill the role. And I think that's very helpful. Who collapsed? Do you remember?
all of them.
All of them collapsed. No, who collapsed because they didn't. It was they had one son.
It was the Timurids.
The Timurids. Yes. Thank you.
And and there's his grandson, Rana. Oh my God, the word. It's Naram's son. Basically, he also managed to expand the boundaries of the empire, and conquer more land, etc. But there was when he challenged the gods and he tried to take over the religious also power, destroy temples, not respect the people, how they view religion, that was really important to maintain, has always been important to maintain order within civilizations. This is what led to a lot of problems, and the beginning of the collapse of also Akkadian. because he's the last ruler of the empire.
Yeah.
So the curse of Akkad,
The
basically.
curse of Akkad. No, I think so
Wow.
many civilizations that we've seen have overvalued land and taking more land and having external tax and being a 10 on our friendly, not friendly scale. And then they don't value, I don't want to say our civilizations don't value culture, because they've all contributed very significantly to the culture.
Oh,
But
for
I
sure.
think that like making sure that your community is strong, having that like very religious, cultural kind of connection, and then making sure that you don't overexert yourself when you go out or you tax your people. I
Right.
believe that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so I think what we have to do is start keeping a running tab of how everybody fell apart and who learned from history. But yeah, I think
I mean, that is why the decline is the first of all of the sections on every
Yes.
single civilization, because all of these empires have ended, right? But their legacy, their impact on today are really, really crucial. And that's why we're chatting about them. So the very first empire and how they have collapsed is very fascinating. I want to jump a little bit to the curse, the climate change, I guess, part of the curse. Maybe the real definition for curse. They're super big on agriculture and irrigation, right? That was their primary economic system.
Exactly.
Cool.
They relied on, economically speaking, they relied on agriculture, but also they lacked a lot of other sources and resources, everything that has to do with metal. So the surplus of their agriculture products, they exchange it to with other products that they need, so they can have metal to build, but also for military conquest afterwards. So it was like a great strategist, the King Sargon, and how he managed the land, and he managed also trade, because he expanded. He basically created solid trade roads between the major city states in ancient Sumer. So yeah.
That's really, really cool that there is that ancient trade route. Good thing they had such a great postal service, I guess, to hey, we have these types of food, trade with us. I'm guessing, at least, who knows. So was trade a big part of the empire then, of all of the ancient Mesopotamian city-states trading and engaging with one another?
Yes, trade prospered during the Akkadian reign, because there was as an empire, they were like the Sumerian and the Akkadians living in coexistence, even though they speak different languages and slightly they have some different practices, but still they managed to live in coexistence. And trade prospered, as I said, during this reign, because there was the roads that were built in a way that facilitated communication, and also to bring the precious metals that they need, and they're not in the region of ancient Sumer.
Incredible.
Sometimes I think about the things that we're doing with Civilizations in Review, right? And I think about in 2,000 years, if people are gonna look back on us and be like, oh yeah, Ben, when he conquered, I don't know, wherever he's gonna go.
Yeah, my salad today, that was what I conquered.
All right. But it'd be like, it was like a 200-year blah blah blah, because you handed it off to 5 of your sons and then it failed, and here are the reasons why. I think that's so wild, and this is kind of just me having time is so wild moment. But I think that going deep back into history and kind of running through these civilizations that had so much, like I said before, modern impact, it's baffling, and I think it's wonderful, obviously. But it's kind of crazy. It feels like we've come so far and we haven't come that far as well.
I just find it so fascinating that there's data on this from 4,000 years ago. I mean, I guess because their postal service is so good, we have their mail. But still, how would they find out that Sargon had 15 sons and they all were governors? I mean, I know they had a language and they took notes, and mailed them off, I guess.
The meeting notes.
Also like a clay mailbox, I'm assuming, a whole clay everything. But anyways, like I just find it
Claymation almost.
all of the above. But yeah, I just find it so cool that there is records somehow of how these empires engaged. I mean, we could have just blamed it on the drought, and yet we know about this, anti-religious curse from the grandson of the first Sargon. That kind of stuff I find so interesting, and that's why I love Civilizations in Review. So thank you for giving us this story. It's so cool.
How did your research go, since Ben was kind of headed in that direction anyway?
I was.
It was, I think, just talking about the records, there's just a fact. Today, there's over 500,000 of clay tablets in Akkadian language in museums all over the world. So this is how we know about what their achievements tell today. And I think like just the story of Enheduanna, the daughter of Sargon, needs more visibility. We don't know more about her writings. I find she deserves like an entire article just to figure out how she did talk about the goddess of love and how poetry was back then.
Are any of her poems like available out? I mean, I know they're out, but
are they out?
How do I ask
Has
this?
she released her album yet? That's what Ben is asking.
How do I like where are her poems? Like, where can we find them or engage with them? That's what I'm trying to say.
I think I need personally to do more research on that.
Great.
And maybe like an entire article on her.
Future project.
We 100% want that. I will definitely say I want the goddess of love from Enheduanna.
Every single time we have these Civilizations in Review, we always end up with like 4 more ideas for really wonderful articles that Al-Fuzaiq wants to put out that haven't been accessible in the past. I think that accessible is definitely the word that you used, Umaima, and the word that we use when we talk about what Al-Fuzaiq does and the reason that we're contributing to this work. I think a lot of my friends maybe back home are kind of like, why the heck did she get into something that's so niche and obviously not like about Megan? But I think that, and this is kind of where I want to change gears, but this is one of the reasons why Al-Fuzaiq exists. We saw that there was this huge gap in educational resources and cultural resources for a region that we wanted to engage with in a very positive way, in a very open-minded way that doesn't necessarily pass judgment. It doesn't necessarily, deem something good, bad, or other. We just kind of want to, dare I say, like, go out and make friends. I know that that's so simple. That's so like playground version of what we're looking for, but I think that being able to have empathy, being able to communicate effectively and positively with other cultures around us just makes the world a safer and a better place anyway. So that's one of the reasons why we started Al-Fuzaiq. But Ben, I know you wanted to talk about our partnership.
Yeah, so thank you, Umaima, for all of this. I can't wait to read her poems and your analysis of them. So thank you for that idea. But we're going to shift gears now. So Umaima is also now a partner of Al-Fuzaiq, which is super exciting to wear both of those hats. She co-founded Africana, which is a Africa-centric, so the entire continent focus of the culture, the communities, Africa Minds. They have a beautiful Instagram, africana.project or at africana.project. And we're going to announce the full partnership on Monday, so get ready. But please, Umaima, take it away. Tell us why you created them, what you're doing with Africana, all of this wonderful stuff.
Yeah, at Africana, we aims to connect Africans by celebrating inspiring stories, the rich cultures in Africa, and also the work of amazing Africans. As you mentioned, we're on Instagram, and you can follow us on africana.project. And we have 3 main segments of content that we share with our audience. The first is related to its Africa Minds. We try to highlight personalities from literature, politics, and science, etc., and share their success stories, basically. And this second segment of content is related to its music, Africa Rhythms. We try to introduce musical genres that are new, that we were actually not familiar with in Africa. Also, the stories of artists from the continent. And the third segment, which is basically Explore Africa, we try to highlight content creators on Instagram, for instance, that travel throughout the continent, also promote social entrepreneurs and small businesses. So yeah, that's basically Africana for now. Also, we will be on other social media soon. So yeah, stay tuned.
Incredible. So please everyone check them out. They're so incredible. 8 of our 22 MENA SWANA countries are also in Africa, so there's a lovely crossover there. Umaima, you're from Morocco, which is very much in the center of both of those two worlds. So it's so lovely. We chatted earlier today with Umaima and her co-founder Alexis, who's based in, I think, Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. Not mistaken.
Yes.
She's from Nigeria. So it's just such a wonderful focus. That's not the same exact thing that we do with Al-Fuzaiq, but a very similar appreciation for the globe and the wonderful cultures that make it up. So thank you for taking on this project. I can't wait to see what Africana does. I kind of wish Ahendawana was based in Africa, or Acadia was, so you could use their stories too. But we have many other civilizations, I promise, that you can double dip with. But again, congrats on starting this really wonderful initiative. I really hope it blows up as best it can.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about Africana. And also, I'm really excited about our partnership and creating quality content to inspire the audience that we want, but also, people from all over the world, and to know about the Middle East and North Africa, but also Africa as a continent. Yes, I'm really excited.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much, Umaima, for writing this incredible empire. I can't wait to see your letters from Endhuana and her wonderful poetry, and also how Africana continues to grow and expand. Just phenomenal. Thank you for sharing. For all of us, we're going to wrap up here. Thanks for tuning in to this wonderful Civilizations in Review. Such exciting stuff moving ahead. So thank you again, Umaima. Check us out on @Alfuzaiq on every social media, and on our website at alfuzaiq.net. That's ALFUSAIC.net. Thanks so much, all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.